Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first webinar of our five-part series to launch the Farm Well Hub. I'm Anne-Marie Doran, owner of Mala Coaching and Consultancy in Naas, County Kildare. I grew up in rural County Wicklow in a farming family. I was known to kick a football and swing a hurl from time to time, whilst dodging the dreaded duties of being a human sheepdog at the family farm. Tonight's session is recorded and will be available on our website at www.farmwellhub.ie. Everyone's cameras are hidden and you're all muted, so don't worry about how you're looking or whatever you're saying. We can't hear you. Any questions or comments can be put into the chat box feature, and I will come to them at the end of the session if we have time and if we haven't covered off that particular topic. So I will be your host for the 5 webinars, and we will be joined by farmers, members from the ACA and other industry leaders each week to open up the conversations, that is, farmers and their families' mental health and well-being. The Farm Well Hub is a new wellness initiative supporting farmers' mental health and physical well-being. It's being launched today with the support of the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine in conjunction with Outsourced Digital Marketing and the ACA. So tonight's topic is understanding and improving mental health. Our conversation will be setting the context of the importance of looking after our mental health in farming. So as mentioned, this is a 5-part series, and we'll have 4 more webinars every Wednesday night consecutively at 8 o'clock. So we'll be looking in depth at overcoming isolation and loneliness next week. And we'll be looking at healthy habits through nutrition, sleep, exercise, and hydration. And then the 4th webinar will be around suicide awareness and prevention. And then our last webinar will be addressing addiction in the farming community. And we'll be joined by new guests every week from the farming community and from industry experts. And then, of course, members from the ACA as well will be joining us as guest speakers. So for the launch, I'm going to skip the cutting of the red ribbon, and we're going to jump into having an open and honest, healthy conversation about mental health and well-being with real farmers. So to launch our campaign, we're joined tonight by Gavin Canning. Gavin introduced himself to me as an accidental farmer. Gavin was Teagasc Student of the Year nominee in 2017. Having completed his Green Cert, he is also has his own farming YouTube channel, Canning Farms. Gavin has his own personal journey and was diagnosed with depression and PTSD following a serious road accident in his teens. Gavin's personal journey highlights the mental challenges faced by farmers, and are delighted to have him with us this evening. So you're very welcome, Gavin, and we're looking forward to having the conversation. I also have joined with me Finola Colgan, who is joining as a family member involved in her husband's equine farming business, now in its 7th generation. So Finola brings a wealth of knowledge and insight from the farm experience and her work in mental health promotion and farming. She's also the co-author of Veterinary Law and Practice in Ireland and has written extensively on farming and mental health in various publications such as Irish Farmers Journal, Country Living and Teagasc Publications. Out of all of her achievements, in my eyes, Finola is famous for being the only woman I know who doesn't own a bag or a pair of high heels. Quite. So to start your conversation and to have our guests here, we're delighted. My first question is, can you tell our viewers about the involvement in farming and your interest in being part of this health and wellbeing initiative? I'll put that question to you first, Gavin.
I'm farming here in County Mayo. Like I said in the intro there, I am an accidental farmer. An uncle of mine was farming and he was retiring, so I came down and took over the farm here. So I didn't know the back end from the front end of the cow when I started, and now I have diversified into contract rearing the last couple of years. So brought that from 30 to we're doing 120 heifers this year and moving to 220 next year. So the reason why I want to get involved in this initiative is because, like you said in the intro, I do suffer with depression after an accident, and it's something that I have my own battles with, and something that I'm trying to grasp and get understanding with. And every day I understand it a little bit more as I'm getting older, and I just want to help the younger people or even older people there who don't understand mental health at the minute to try and get a grasp on it.
Thanks very much, Gavin. Would you like to come in there, Finola?
Yeah, and I'd like to pick up on Gavin saying that he didn't know the back end of a cow. That's come as a surprise to me, Gavin, because when I married my husband, who was a farmer, and I know he had a farmer for a husband for a farmer, but he would declare he doesn't have a wife. But that said, I actually grew up in pretty ordinary circumstances in Lismore in County Waterford, where my dad was a secondary school teacher in Mount Melleray. My mother was of her generation, a nurse, but couldn't work because of the statute bar. And so I grew up what I would count fairly civilized type of life existence, went to college, all of that. And then I met with Tim, and like, you were saying, Anne Marie, about trying to avoid kind of being the sheepdog. Well, I wasn't even afforded that status. I was said stood in the gap, blocked the sheep, say. So I've learned everything about farming from that day one after coming home from the honeymoon. And I just didn't know what farming life was about. And I really, I was kind of embarrassed because, neighbours would be coming in and that and wanted to see who was Tim's new wife and all that stuff locally. And so I used to know the difference between a heifer, a cow, a sheep, or So I've learned, yeah, and that's why I think it's just like that. I've learned so much from the roots of farming as a person. But of course, my children have grown up knowing it all. Yeah,
Very good. And Finola, the key question, did you have high heels before you married Tim?
absolutely not,
No.
absolutely not.
So
No,
you
and I
were
don't even know. I don't even know that I had him for my wedding day. No, no, absolutely not. I
and I
just
well
or a
believe
handbag or a handbag.
it.
I
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
not the typical farmer's wife, I don't think. Yeah. And
Yeah,
all I possess is just one key, and that's the key to my car. Yeah.
very good, very
Yeah. I
good.
never carry
Um,
a back door key or a
so
house door key. Yeah.
thanks for sharing that there. So there's a relatively new phrase out there, working from home, or some call it remote working. As farmers, we know this is not it's not new to farmers. This has been the way from time. You've been working from home from the beginning. Um, so farming is physically and mentally demanding. We know that. What are some of the biggest mental health challenges farmers face, and how can they be addressed, in your opinions, from being on the farm?
So I suppose there, from my point of view, the one thing I found about when I started full-time farming was from one end of the day to the other, you mightn't see anyone, mightn't be in contact with anyone, and then when you do meet someone, you have nothing to talk about, only the farm. So basically, I think that the best thing you can do is either meet up with friends, get a hobby. I play soccer with lads once every 2 or 3 weeks. It's not to play soccer. I've lost the touch, but it's just to get out and meet the lads and talk about something different and see them, But definitely, I think sort of the loneliness and isolation, you can get into a rut with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Finola, I wonder what you would think about that.
Yeah, pretty well the same. Obviously, like I work outside of the farm, and I remember like my husband said he didn't think his wife would ever be working, but that was never in my agenda. I presumed like I would be like a woman of substance, I don't think, but just to have my own lifestyle and whatever. And I know it's been very important and we're looking at farmers, perhaps we're talking about farmers, but we've also got to factor in the wife and the children, and they can break the loneliness and isolation, Gavin, for
Yeah.
farm families. And I agree totally with you. Like I would like the way in American, oh, did you have a nice day in the office there? Like I never got that. I was the one coming home from work. Like, did you have a nice day at work? No. But how did things go on the farm? So it is a farming conversation. And I suppose that's good for both parties that you can have that chat and like night, noon, and morning. If it's not horses, it's dogs, and it's not dogs, it's sheep, and it goes on and on. But that's the focus, isn't it? And part of the challenges. But I used to always feel quite bad when, after having like maybe, our children then going back to work, I used to feel quite bad leaving my husband. I used to think, God, it must be so lonely. I used to think that as well. Yeah. So it is like you're there with your thoughts and looking after your animals, and then you're seeing problems, aren't you, and having to sort out issues as you go across the fields or looking after your stock or whatever it is, as the case may be, Gavin.
Yeah.
Yeah, every day there's a new issue, like, so it's part of, like you said, it's being able to come back home and having that honest conversation and being able to express your feelings as well. That's part of it, like, and if you are annoyed, if you are frustrated, don't bottle it up. Just, let it out and kind of explain it, like.
Yeah, we had a neighbour, a farmer, in here this evening, and I was just saying to him, like, I was coming onto this, and I said, Aidan, like, what would you say around farmers and mental health? Because he himself is a farmer, and he said, talk, talk, talk. And he said, like, and I thought it was quite interesting. He said, like, you can give an opinion, and the person can listen to your opinion, but he doesn't have to take your opinion. But it's about that exchange, isn't it, Anne Marie? Like,
Yeah. I think that's that's a fair comment, and it's like we can all talk about what works for us, and one thing might work for Gavin, that might work for me, might work for Finola. It doesn't work for everybody, and there's no one prescription for anyone's needs. I was just going to pick up on the working from home piece, or the remote working. It's a great phrase that's been thrown around at the moment. What do you think about that working from home? I know the challenges from people like going to the office and coming home. They can throw down the laptop, close it off, and they walk out the door, and they leave the workplace. Gavin, this is probably more directed at you, around, how hard is it to switch off? Like, you live in the workplace, so how,
It's extreme. You know yourself there with your own business. Like, it can be extremely hard at times to switch off. And with the farming, between weather and dealing with livestock and crops or anything like that, it's so unpredictable. Problems just pop up. Now, there's great things as well, but problems can pop up every single day. Like, even last night there, I have heifers going abroad. The department came out, and basically said we just have to disinfect the sheds. So I was up all night last night cleaning out sheds, disinfecting them, getting them ready for today, because they have to make the shipment next month. But you weren't planning for that, but you just have to get on and do it. So that's the one thing I find, is there is a lot of unpredictability with the farming. So it is very hard to switch off, but sometimes you do need to take that day at the weekend, or a day during the week maybe, or once a month or something, and just do something that's completely not related to the farm and just try and switch off.
yeah, it's kind of like nearly leaving the farm and getting away from it, going to a match or whatever. Yeah.
It's been the
but
best thing.
Nola.
Yeah, no, Anne Marie, like you were saying there about remote working and that, and I often feel that, like, I'm employed by an organisation that has to have human resource policies, health and safety, data protection, working hours. But when you're in a farm and it's a business, it's a place of work, a very busy working place, but they don't have anybody protecting their hours of work, or overstretching themselves or whatever. And I think that's a missing link. But yet you can't just prescribe how a farmer should manage his day, because just for the very reason you talked about there, Gavin, like you're moving cattle, but now you have to do A, B, and C first, and so and you have to be just ready, haven't you? It's either that or lose the transaction, isn't it?
Yeah,
You have
you're
to
always
push
guaranteed the
yourself.
minute you want to go somewhere is when a cow will calf, or a cow will break out, or something will happen. That's when it'll happen.
Yeah,
So that's the side of things you just have to know about.
yeah,
Yeah. And I suppose then that gives the ripple effect on, Gavin, you're saying about, you're up all night trying to get ready for the workload. And I mean, it's well documented now that sleep is absolutely so important for your mental health. And it's not something we're going to get into now, but we will be doing a session on it on the third webinar. But it's detrimental to your mental health if you can't get the right amount of sleep. And I suppose we'll be looking at strategies in the third webinar as to how can we manage that a little bit better. So just to move the conversation on, can you highlight any specific practices or strategies that help stress and build resilience on the farm? when you may be kind of, very stressed out or.
Well, I suppose from my point of view there, that just from a day-to-day point of view, I try and have set the farm up that it's a one-man operation and kind of have walkways and things like that. But it's more on the infrastructure side to make my day easier. So that means that when I do come down, if I want to work the cattle or whatever, I can do that myself, or I can do it within a reasonable amount of time. But I suppose that's sort of more on the practical side of things, I wonder what you were thinking.
Yeah, well, I was probably going to take it away from the physical and just bring it back maybe to the mental. And there's a guy called Professor Corey Keyes, and he did research on flourishing and languishing. And basically, what he discovered was when he did a psychological assessment of 1,000 people between the ages of 17 and 84, like a proper psychological assessment, 16% were flourishing, 54% had what he called good to moderate mental health, 20% had a diagnosis like your depression, your schizophrenia, your eating disorders, and then the last 10% had the languishing. And that's where maybe where farmers might need to look. When you're really busy and you're hard hours, long hours, you can get tired and can feel like languishing, can feel like you're stuck in a rut. But what Corey Keyes has shown is that people can move in and out of that, and to recognize that today mightn't be a great day, today might be a very demanding day, but then to watch out and what can I make happen tomorrow to help me flourish. Because when and we do understand it in farming, getting stuck in a rut, don't want to look after animals, I'm just tired, exhausted, and as Anne-Marie mentioned, maybe not eating properly, not sleeping, it's going to wear you down physically. So you're right, like you can put in all your external structures, but you must also put in your mental structures to sustain yourself as well. I don't know, does that make sense to you, Gavin?
Oh, it does, yeah, completely, yeah, because um, like once you're doing that, everything will fall into place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but making the effort. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any specific community supports or, any clubs that either of you would recommend or, that are out there or resources that are out there to kind of really try and manage that and build the resilience?
Yeah,
Fionn, do you
well,
want to go?
well, thanks, Gavin. Yeah, well, Teagasc has recently published a new leaflet, sowing the seeds of positive health. But I think I was telling you before, Anne Marie, that I've just finished up on a project called Farm Res, and it's farmres.eu, and we put in an e-learning web. I know you'll be creating a link to it, and like the nice thing
Actually,
about this,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's on there.
yeah, and I think the nice thing about that is it's about the farmer can tune into that whenever he wants in his own time on his mobile phone, and can just do a self-assessment, quality of life, and just see, is he not getting enough sleep, is he not taking enough time off, and it can give a good prompt to say, you know what, maybe need to put down tools. Like I was talking to a discussion group in Westmeath recently, and that question was put out to the group, do you take a break? And what one farmer said, oh yeah, when the wife organizes it. But maybe, and maybe that's the tendency. I don't know, Kevin, what you say in that, but it's just to encourage people and farmers to say, do you know what, I need to take a break at own tools. I know it's not simple. Mark you my words. Like you can have your dinner here on the table ready 6, 7 o'clock, and then nobody turns up till 8, 9 o'clock. That's no hour to be eating a meal. Thank you. The cook is fired. Yeah, so they don't mind themselves enough, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, and we do have a cohort of female farmers as well out there who are farming as well.
yeah,
Yeah, I know it probably is in the minority, but yeah, just to acknowledge that as well, that we do have female farmers, of course.
yeah.
Um, Very good, very good. So, I suppose my next question will be around, has the conversation in mental health and in farming, the farming community changed over the years? And if so, how? I think the the understanding around mental health and, not showing your emotions, is there a stigma there around that? And has it changed or is it still there? Do you want to come in there?
I suppose there still is that stigma. I suppose in the last couple of years it's become more prevalent in the media and things like that, and especially around farming, around males, it seems to be a sign of weakness that if you show your emotions or if you if you suffer from mental disease or depression or anything like that. So I suppose it's definitely getting better, but there still is a stigma there. We all do that thing where if someone has depression or someone has, we go, oh, they're mad, they're mental. Instead of taking a second out and seeing, well, what's going on in their lives, do I have to understand this? It's not just as simple as a one brush paints everyone, you know what I mean? So, but it's just there about chipping away at the stigma. I suppose it's not going to be overnight, but hopefully it'll get better and be more mainstream. If we broke our arm or hurt our leg, it's easier to explain than something that's in your head.
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
ironic thing is, if a farmer does have a physical injury, that actually impacts on his mental health, it's like almost acceptable. I don't mean acceptable, but there's a better understanding if depression or anxiety or stress came in as a result of that accident. But I do think that things have improved enormously. And I think, and the fact, Anne Marie, that you've put this Farm Well Hub together and you've recognized the need and you've done your research in it. And as Gavin said, one brush is not going to paint everything, one shoe size is not going to fit, or one farmer's boot doesn't fit every farmer. And it's about reaching out, and it's also, I think, the family have a big role to play as well, how they talk and how they feel. And at the end of the day, and Gavin has talked about his animals and that, but you wouldn't neglect your animals, but yet, farmers might neglect their personal health. They'll bring in the vet
I've
and they'll
often, I've often heard that being talked about, Finola, where a farmer will
yeah,
look after their animal before they will
yeah,
look after their own health.
yeah.
Would you agree with that, Gavin?
Oh, definitely, definitely. You nearly have to have the leg hanging off before you go to the doctor. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but then
yeah,
the other thing too, maybe it's like I'm not sure if it's outside the scope of our conversation, but too sometimes it's about being able to access the services too, because farmers can't just drop everything. Like you know yourself, like if the day's work, if you have to go into town to fill in a form or do your driver's license, and you say, "Sure, I'll do that tomorrow." But as we say in this house, tomorrow is a great day. We don't see it on the calendar kind of thing. And but I think because you have so much more happening, Department of Agriculture, Teagasc reaching out and having farmers talk to each other in peer groups, let it be dairy talking groups, let it be whatever the focus group is, Anne Marie. I think that
yeah.
is
I think
yeah,
I think the resources that you mentioned there that are all linked on our website, actually on
yeah.
the farmwellhub.ie website, that European resource that you just spoke about. Just remind me of the name of it there, Finola, again.
It's, it's called Farmer Assisted Resources for Mental Resilience. And
Yeah,
that's a kind of a thing I often pick up on. Like, they often say, and the people that are writing externally about farmers and maybe not a farmer themselves, they talk about, oh, farmers need to be resilient. You know what? Farmers are extremely resilient. That's who they are from day one. And not alone are they resilient, they're producers. And they're
yeah,
producers of our food and everything. And we need for farmers to believe that there is a future and like if you do have the depression, that's no different than a dentist or a doctor or a vet or a teacher having depression. Like
yeah.
they're out of sorts as well. So it's to
That's
normalize it, isn't it, Gavin?
oh yeah, that's it. Like, because it's just about basically you don't always have to be the hard woman or the hard man, and you don't always have to be. Sometimes you can be vulnerable. Sometimes you can ask for help. There's no harm in or there's no disgrace in it. Like, it's better off asking for help today or being there for someone today than worst case scenario being at the funeral tomorrow. So
Yeah.
you're better off reaching out and better off looking for help if you are feeling down.
Thanks,
Very
Gavin. That was leading me on to my next question, actually. You've probably nearly answered it, but for our viewers here tonight and anyone who will look at it on the recording in a week or a month or a year's time, you are a farmer and you are struggling with your mental health, what can you do right now? I just open that out there for the
Yeah, I suppose for me, I was a long time thinking that there was something wrong or something wrong with me or anxious and things like that, and kind of never outwardly said anything to anyone, and then it boiled over. So there was a suicide attempt there a couple of years ago. Now when I was younger, about 19, 20 years of age, I was young, I was dumb, I didn't understand it. That just happens. afterwards, I seen the damage that it could have done to those around me. So then you realise then that that's not an option. So I
Yeah.
think the first thing that anyone has to do is, if they are feeling bad, is make an appointment with your GP. He can advise you on whether it's exhaustion, whether it's a health thing, whether it is mental thing. Usually what happens is you just go on to tablets, and then maybe if you need to, you can go and do a bit of counselling and things like that. It's not something that they're going to throw you into a loony bin. That doesn't happen anymore. It's all mostly outpatients, discreet, no one knows about it. And as well as that, 1 in 4 people are on some sort of medication for depression or anxiety or something along those lines. So it's mainstream. It keeps the chemist open. That's what it is. So don't think that there's something wrong with you just because you're looking for a bit of help.
Yeah, so just reach out and look for help. And the GP is probably and of course your initial network as well. If you have somebody you can talk to, for
Family
sure.
or something like that. But then I think a GP is really your main port call, really, because they understand it. They know exactly how to deal with it. Some of your friends and family, they can talk and take some of the pressure off, but to deal with the thing, I think you really need to go to professionals.
Thanks. Finola, would you like to come in there on a
Yeah.
last comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Anne Marie, and I think Gavin has spoken such common sense there. But sometimes too, it might be useful pick up the phone and phone a helpline and check a helpline that's relevant to your farming, that somebody will understand. That might also be the start of where somebody will say to you, maybe you need to go to the GP because maybe you might be reluctant. And like there was research done on farmers in the west of Ireland that about suicide and attempted suicide, and that often they would not go to the GP because they didn't want the GP to be thinking, I'm not coping, because the GPs would know their people, say. So but I do think like that there's a lot of support and help out there, and this is a wonderful new fresh resource as well for people.
Yeah.
And it gets the conversation going, and you've identified wonderful topics over the next 5 weeks as well, Anne Marie.
Thank you, Finola, and thank you for that. And any of the supports that people might be looking for can be accessed on the website, on the farmwell.ie website, so you can find links to the Samaritans and Pieta House, etc., for those helplines that we've just been discussing. It's a
Yeah.
it's a conversation we could continue on, I'm sure, into the night. I have one parting question for you both. If I was to give you one wish for the farming community to wake up in the morning, what would you change overnight and write by tomorrow morning?
Can I?
30
From
a minute each.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I went, thinking, and just came across a really interesting quote. The farmer has to be an optimist, or he wouldn't still be a farmer. Will Rogers, an American activist, and for me, that really captures the resilience and hope that farmers have to keep going despite their challenges, and that there is a future in farming, and that we need to be proud of our farmers, not just in Ireland, but right across the world. But we are biased, and we say what our farmers do for us here in our own country. Fresh food, it's wonderful. But go ahead, Gavin. Sorry.
Thank
yeah,
you.
no, you hit the
Lovely.
nail on the head. I think for me, I think it's that if I woke up in the morning and I knew that my future was set as regards agriculture, because basically we don't know what's going to happen in 10 or 20 years. Obviously, there's going to be massive things needed over the next while to bring in renewables, make farming more efficient, more eco-friendly, things like that. But I wish that instead of some of the bashing that was going on in the media, I wish that there was a positive spin on the work that we do and things like that, you know.
Perfect. Sorry, something just happened there. Gavin, brilliant. Thank you so much. I think we've come to the end of our session. So insightful, so authentic, so honest. And it was exactly what we needed to start our conversation and to set ourselves up for the next 4 webinars. We'll be back on next Wednesday night, and we'll be joined by 2 new members. So I just want to thank you both so much. I couldn't have been joined by 2 better speakers. I'm sure the audience will agree. And to share your stories and your insights. Just really, really appreciate that. I want to thank the ACA and the Department of Agriculture, our key partners in this and getting the Farmwell Hub initiative up and going. And I just want to encourage the viewers to register now for our next webinar next week, Wednesday, 8 o'clock, and it's overcoming isolation and loneliness. So we'll be going deeper into the strategies as to what can we do to prevent this and make it a more, inclusive community for the farmers. And just to remind you that the recordings of these webinars, if you found it good, they will be up on our website, and you can direct people to it whenever they would like to listen, if they'd like to listen. So yeah, you can find it on www.farmwellhub.ie, and you could follow us also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. And thank you very much. Over and
Yeah.
out. See
Yeah.
you next
Thank
week.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Marie.